is a presentation of router initial configuration, and it is a part of my CCNA2 course. First of all, we need to establish why we need routing. We need it because we want to communicate with other networks than our own local area network. And to be able to do so, we need the routers that will take care of sending information from one network to another. The routers also decide what is the best path, so it will not only find out how to do it, but find out the fastest way to do it as well. So if I want to communicate with other networks, or I want to go onto the internet, well then the routers are the one that take care of that for me. If you look inside or look at the router device itself, the physical device, well, it's actually a specialized computer. Here I have a very, very old one, which I've opened up, and if you look inside the router, it looks more or less like, well, an old computer, where you have a CPU over here. You have some types of memory. You can have a flash RAM, a ROM, NVRAM, and so on. You might have a hard drive. In this one, it's no hard drive. And somewhere in here, you will find our operating system, like your normal computer also have. But there are no monitor, it's no keyboard or anything like we have on our normal computers. Instead, we have the input-output devices on the back, or actually it's in the front when you look at the router in your normal rack. So here we have different ports. This one here, as I said, a very old one. If you look at my presentation here, you will see a newer design where you have, for instance, different LAN interfaces. It could be Ethernet, fast Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet. You have typically USB ports. You can have a console cable or console interface like I also have here. You have different types of modules that you can install depending on what kind of ports you need. You can have wireless ports, you can have other types of ports depending on your need. This one here is a pre-installed one, so here I cannot change it. I have 2 serial ports, I have 2 Ethernet ports in this one. But you normally buy what you need now, not a static setup like this one. So that is how the routers are, the physical appearance of a router. If you look at the memory in the router, you will see that it has different types of memory. Like in the computer, we have the RAM. This is our working memory where it stores all the working information. For instance, the running iOS, the operating system, the configuration file we're running on, different tables like the routing table, the ARP table, and other kinds of buffers. Then we have the read-only memory, the ROM. This is where you find the bootstrap or the boot up instructions. You will find some kind of diagnostic tools as well, and you will also find a very limited iOS. It's just enough so it can start up, and you are able to install a new iOS if you, for instance, accidentally deleted your operating system. Then we have the non-volatile random access memory, the NVRAM, where we find our configuration file, so that when we turn off the device, we will still have our configuration file if we have saved it into our NVRAM. And then we have the flash RAM, where we will find our operating system, 1 or 2 depending on, or as many as you have room for, and also other kind of system related files you will find in the flash. So the routers will try to find the best path between different networks. We will have 2 types of routing. We have static routing or dynamic routing. And the whole idea here is to find the way from one LAN to another or from one network to another. And we will look into, the routers will look into the routing table to find out where do I find the other networks. And there are different types of doing so. The first one is called process switching, which is the old and the original way, where when the router or got a packet into one of their interfaces. It will look into the packet, it will do the routing algorithm and find out where to send it, and then it will send it on to the exiting interface. It will do the math every time. It will go look and look at the packet. The fast switching is a little bit better because then you will only calculate the routing algorithm once, and then you will store the results in your cache so that when you get another packet for the same network, you doesn't have to do the math all over. It will look into the cache and see, okay, I found the way to this network before, so I'll just send it out through the exit interface. Or the last one, which is the Cisco Express forwarding method, is where you don't really need to do the math at all because you have just saved everything in a database and in a adjacency table. So instead of doing the math, you can just look into your tables instead. So this is faster than doing the math because finding the best path requires some kind of calculations. The routers in the networks are typically the default gateway. So when I have a computer that wants to send something outside of my own network, well then automatically when I've set it up, I've pointed to the default gateway. The default gateway is like the door out to the rest of the networks. And it's typically my router that has that functionality. So when I want to send something outside, the router will accept the packet and it will look into its routing table and find out where to send the information. When we document our network, we normally will look at how the different devices are set up. And normally we have static IP addresses on all networking devices, for instance the routers and switches if they have an IP address as well, whereas our local or our computers, host computers in the network, they have normally a dynamic IP address instead. And also, of course, we could document what kind of default gateway that we're using. When you have set up your router and it's running, you will see that there are different LEDs on the back side where you can go in and see if there is activity on the different interfaces. Okay, so that was it. The next presentation I will show you how to configure IP addresses on a switch, how to configure the basic routing settings, both on IP version 4 and IP version 6. So this is for the next video. Thank you.